And now, you're tuned in to RBLR, the home of Tampa Bay's Reveler Sports.
Hello, everyone out there in Tampa Bay and beyond. This is James Mills coming at you for the RBLR Sports Podcast. I am here covering the Rowdies on a Tuesday night. We're going a little early in the evening, but not a little early in the week because, Carlos, you have some big stuff coming up this week.
Oh, man, James. I'll tell you what, countdown's on. I graduate in, hold on, today's Tuesday, like 5 days, 4 days, I don't know. I was telling Eureka before we jumped into recording this. It's been senior week for the past week and a half, which is more than a week, but whatever. I guess we still call it senior week. And everybody's done with school, so we're all just kind of hanging out, waiting until graduation, which means that the DC bars have been making tons of money this week. And I have been struggling to wake up earlier than 12 most days the past 5 days. But we're here. It's 5 p.m. on this lovely Tuesday evening. I'm really, really excited to talk about one of these games. Well, I don't even know if I can say I'm really excited to talk about that game. It was chaotic.
Really confused to talk about?
I'm confused. We won one. We'll jump into the other one, which was significantly less exciting. But James, before we do any of that, how's it going down in sunny, I hope, Tampa Bay?
Yeah, it is sunny now. It was raining earlier. It will be raining tomorrow, which is Wednesday, by the time that everyone should hopefully be listening to this. And if you are listening to this while it's raining, maybe at least one of these games will brighten up your day, while the other one will make you think of how things can be bright again in the future. How lovely would that be? But everyone, yes, we do have a whirlwind of a week to get to. Last week, there were two games, both at home, both versus Birmingham Legion versus Birmingham Vegan. A 6-4 win in the Open Cup, which we won under the craziest circumstances, as Carlos has already alluded to. We're going to get to all of that in a little bit. And then on Saturday, we played them in the league. That was a 1-0 loss. There was a lot going on in that game, too. Also, a lot less. So there's just tons to discuss. But we do know at least one more thing about the Open Cup. We will host our next game because we beat Birmingham, and we will be hosting FC Dallas of Major League Soccer. That is May 22nd. Buy your tickets, folks. Buy your damn tickets and get to that game. You have to be there. We are playing an MLS team. We need everyone there to cheer on the green and gold so that they can win. Again, this is already the furthest we've gotten in the competition. That should be enough. It doesn't matter that we're playing an MLS team, but we are playing an MLS team. So make sure you're there May 22nd. That is a Wednesday. In our own standings, no one got any points here at RBLR Sports, including Kaylor Hodges of the Hammering Down podcast. He didn't have enough faith in his own Birmingham Legion, I guess. So it leaves it 3-3-3. And 1 for me in last place because, as we all know, I am a soccer predictions expert. Now, we have a game to preview this Saturday versus FC Tulsa at Al Lang Stadium. If you don't have tickets to that, get tickets to that.
That'll be a fun one.
Yes, it will be a good one for lots of reasons. Carlos has them in his back pocket ready to go, but we're not there yet, folks. We have more to talk about. We have USL news to get to at the end of the show. There's too much to go over, but we still have more to fit in. Let's get right into it. Please like and subscribe to us on YouTube, all that stuff. Social media, everybody knows, at RBLR Sports. Now, Carlos, let's get into the first quick recap of the first game this past week.
James, as you know, there were two games here. I'll jump into this Open Cup game, a thrilling one. Maybe you want to take the less thrilling one before we jump into the questions and analysis. There's a lot to talk about. Jumping into that first game against none other than Birmingham Legion. It was a thrilling game with foreign net, Manjoma, Jordan Doherty, Guillen, Pacific, Nyangabire making up that back. It was kind of, am I mistaken? It was like more of a back four this time. Slightly different setup. Manjoma and Nyangabire were kind of out there on the wings, but also kind of not. It was a weird thing. Lasso was eligible to play in this game, and he was actually in that starting lineup initially, but it looked like he picked up some sort of injury. Something happened before the game where that was a quick switch up towards the end, right towards the beginning of the game. Manjoma came in and took his place. So weird formation, but they made do with what we had. Obviously, it led to no shortage of goals. In front of them, you had Hilton, Dennis, Bodley. In front of them, you had Perez, Cal Jennings, and Damien Rivera starting over Manu Arteaga. So many people had a great game here. In fact, I'd say the whole team could have been eligible for man of the match for about 80 minutes, and then they just weren't. It was the most incredible collapse I've ever seen in a soccer game. And like not exaggerating. I mean, I think I've seen a lot of soccer in my 22 years of life. This was unlike anything I've ever seen before, and it sucked that it was happening to my team. It was a totally unacceptable lapse of soccer. In the last like 16 minutes, Birmingham was able to score 4 goals and tie it up in stoppage time. Tyler Pasher had the stoppage time of his life and scored 2 goals in stoppage time to make it 4-4 after Enzo Martinez and Kobe Hernandez-Foster scored just before him in the 82nd, 89th minute, respectively. It was an absolute barn burner of the last few minutes in that game. Again, Cal Jennings had a hat trick, so I'm not going to overlook that. That was awesome. Damien Rivera had a fantastic game, scored a really, really beautiful opening goal that I think really set the tone for what I thought was going to be a blowout. And it kind of was for a second, but obviously it wasn't. We'll jump into all of that in a little bit. Later on, obviously, it's Open Cup. There was overtime. That was a blast. Manuel Arteaga scored potentially the goal of the season. The go-ahead goal was a bicycle kick because, of course, it had to be. It was the most insane game you've ever seen. It only made sense that it would be the most insane go-ahead goal you've ever seen in overtime for your Rowdies. In my opinion, by far and away, surpasses Joe Cole's bicycle kick goal in terms of coolest Rowdies bicycle kick goals in the modern era, which I'm pretty sure is just the two.
Very big claim, though.
Yeah, it was incredible. It was the most absurd circumstances, and it was awesome. None other than Nick Moon would get on the score sheet just after him. And of course, it was a crazy game, and you couldn't end with another crazy bit of action with Arteaga somehow getting sent off right before the game ended, making him ineligible to play this game against FC Dallas. Really, really dumb. I don't know what he said, but he clearly said something to the ref that made her mad. Next thing you know, Arteaga's off the field. We win. Arteaga is missing that game against Dallas. Crazy game. There's so much to talk about there. James, I'm going to let you take the boring one because that one was a lot more fun to mention.
Yeah, we'll get into the boring one here. That is the Saturday game against Birmingham Legion, as we said, also at Al Lang. Jordan Farr started in net. Across the back, again, it was Eddie Manjoma, Jordan Doherty, and Aaron Guillen. The midfield 4 was Pacific Nyongabire, Danny Crisostomo, Lewis Hilton, and Blake Bodley. Up top, Cal Jennings, Manuel Arteaga, and Josh Perez. Now, the first half, there really wasn't that much to separate the two sides. I was watching the game again, and I watched the highlights before we got started here. Watching it over, I realized that there were a lot more chances that I forgot about in this game that the Rowdies really could have put it away, and it did seem like we were better off. And the results obviously sucked, but it did seem like the game was better off than we actually thought when I was leaving the stadium. I will put it that way, at least. When I was leaving the stadium, I thought, oh my God, the sky is falling, all of this. But it did seem like we had a better game overall. So I will at least point that much out. But in the second half, unfortunately, the only thing that there was to separate us was a goal by Birmingham Legion and none other than Enzo Martinez. I really think an own goal would have been a better outcome to lose that game than losing one to Enzo Martinez. I cannot stand that, and it's really unfortunate. But
He's
was the
unbearable.
one.
He's unbearable.
He
it's
really
incredible.
is. And unfortunately, it was him who scored the goal that gave them the 1-0 lead and the 1-0 win in the end. They snuck that in from 4 total shots and 1 total big chance all night. So congratulations, I guess. Despite our 19 shots, only 2 of those were considered on target. I don't know if that included us hitting the post, because we did hit the post. And we only had 1 big chance created ourselves. So that also does show where we were in the evening. Now, for a quick standings update, Colorado Springs and Lou City won again. Congratulations to Colorado Springs. I don't like to see Lou City winning, but they did. Charleston stay top. Battery have 24 points from 10 games to lead the league overall, and Lou City have 21 points from their 8 games. They are right behind the Battery and actually could overtake them if they win the 2 games they have in hand. Mm-hmm. Detroit City are 3rd with 17 points. We are 6th with 13 points. The last two teams in the Eastern Conference are Miami and North Carolina FC with 7.
Yeah.
Sacramento on the West Coast have 20 points from their 10 games, while New
Damn.
Mexico have 19 from their 9 games. Orange County and Monterey Bay both have 15 ahead of San Antonio's 14, while the league cellar dweller El Paso only have 5 points. I'm going to put it out of my head that we drew a game at home versus El Paso.
It felt like a loss.
Yes, it did. Now, those were the 2 games. We have not got into the analysis here. Carlos, let's start with the Open Cup. I don't know how to get started, to be honest, but what happened there? Explain from your point of view, and I'll do mine at some point, I guess, but what even do we do with this game?
I don't know. First of all, let me just say, by the way, this is random as hell. I totally missed the fact that Colorado's won 3 straight league games in a row. That's kind of fun.
Yeah.
I mean, they lost their first 5 games in a row. Good for them. They're coming back. Okay. That's a tangent. I just thought that was an interesting piece there. Keep an eye on them. Georgetown alum Aiden Rocha on that team. This Open Cup game was psychotic, and it was incredible for a long time. It was awesome. It was everything you want when a Rowdies are playing a game. It was offensive creation. It was defensive. What's the word? It's just incredibly strong. Defensively, there wasn't anything going well for this Birmingham team in the attack, in the back. I don't know why they decided they should play this poor 17-year-old kid in goal against a team that was firing on all cylinders offensively, but they did, and it certainly didn't help that the Rowdies were feeling it. It was 4-0, and there at no point did I ever feel that Birmingham would have a chance to come back after Cal Jennings scored his first goal. We were up 2-0 in the 34th minute. It felt so easy. We were cruising. He got his second goal of the game right before halftime, and he got his hat trick in the 79th minute. And they were all great goals too, by the way. That Damien Rivera goal that opened the scoring was beautiful.
Yes, it was.
He's someone who has when he's been on the field, he's shined. It's been really cool to know that he's been on the bench most of this time and he's available to play like that. So that being said, I'm not too concerned with Arteaga having to miss this FC Dallas game. If Damien Rivera plays the way he did, it should be okay. But that does kind of suck. Arteaga can't be there. That being said, everything was clicking even with Arteaga on the bench for most of this game. And then at some point, I don't know. Well, I can tell you the exact minute, 82nd minute. None other than Enzo Martinez gets on the score sheet. Okay. It's 4-1. Whatever. 7 minutes later, in the 89th minute, the game's done, right? Kobe Hernandez-Foster gets on the score sheet. And then things kind of go south really quickly, James. I'm not sure where to pinpoint what went wrong. We made a lot of substitutes, which is totally fine. Because you're up 4-0, you're kind of just letting the boys play. Lasso comes in later on after maybe picking up an early injury. I don't know. Joey Desart gets some minutes. Crisostomo comes in, has a pretty good shift. There's a lot of movement. Ortiz comes in and gets in the game. Ortiz got some minutes because again we were at 4-0. Why not let the kid play? I don't really know what I can point to say why that collapse was so bad, other than it had to be just entirely mental. When you're up that much, even going down, even letting in 2 goals pretty quickly back to back, the game's over. It's in the 89th minute. There's no way they score 2 goals in stoppage time, right? You're up 4-2. The game's done. It's a silly penalty to give away. Absolutely was a penalty at the end. Tyler Pasher gets a goal, his second goal on a penalty. I don't know what to point to what went wrong, James. I know we can talk about overtime as much as we want because whatever I think it's impressive, really impressive that we were able to still win after giving up 4 goals like that. I thought it was over. Momentum entirely in Birmingham's favor. They have everything going for them right now. There's no way we come out of that locker room ready for overtime and ready to win a game with all the movement we just had in there. So many different players coming in, not ready to play, not ready to have to play overtime, expecting to just have cruise to a 4-0 win. Arteaga gets a beautiful goal. Moon gets a goal. Whatever. That's great. I think that's really impressive. I think the storyline, obviously, is that we gave up a 4-0 lead in the last 10 minutes plus stoppage time in the game. So It's really impressive that we played so well for 80 minutes, scored 4 goals, went up 4-0. It was beautiful. Cal Jennings got one of the very few modern Rowdies era hat tricks. Damian Rivera had a great game. You have plenty of other players had a great game. I really like Neon Gabira in this game too. Blake Bodley had 2 assists. Like, so many things went well. Like, if you ignore the last 10 minutes plus stoppage time, you would think we would have blown out this team, which we absolutely should have. And then again, overtime was really impressive. Honestly, it really was. It was pretty cool to see how we managed to still come out and somehow pull out the win. But I think the obvious storyline is, how the hell does this happen? And I can't really point to anything. Like, if we would have lost, this conversation would be so different. We would be like, this is like entirely unacceptable. Like, this is a total lapse. And it is. But the mood is just slightly different because Arteaga was able to pull off that wonder goal. Yeah. So, James, let me ask you, because I have no clue. What do you think happened in those last 10 minutes? I don't know. I see all the movement, all the different players coming in. Like, everybody gets a little sleepy and the new players are coming in, just kind of close out the game. What happened there? I can't point to anything. I really can't.
Well, I'll point to actually what Robbie Nielsen said after the game, and I don't want to throw him under the bus by saying this. I feel like it sounds that way, but these were the words that he used. He said that at a certain point, a game can get too easy, for want of a better term. That was the exact phrase. I want to make sure that I'm putting it in the exact way that he said it, because otherwise it's going to sound like we're being uncharitable, or that he was being uncharitable. And I don't think he was. It was just that we were already up 4-0, as you have already said, Carlos. When Enzo Martinez scored, I was like, yeah, whatever. Okay. In fact, he scored, and then because it's Enzo Martinez, he was right in front of our crowd. He turned and he shushed them. He gave them the shushing gesture, and the crowd went
so much.
The crowd went mental at this. The crowd went absolutely insane at this and started yelling, rightly, check the scoreboard, check the scoreboard, check the scoreboard. And we were like, yeah, okay, what are they going to do? It's 4-1. This game is over. It doesn't matter. It was 4-2 in the 89th minute. And even then I was like, okay, great. They got two consolation goals. They can have their consolation goals and they can go back to their hotel and we'll beat them on Saturday. A lot of that changed. But yeah, I think that it just came down to, at a certain point, the Rowdies thought the game was over and they started to do things. And the way that Robbie Nielsen also put it was that they started to do things that were the harder things to do. The game was so far away from Birmingham that they thought, then we might as well do the passes that aren't necessarily the easy ones, but are the ones that might look good. I in my opinion, that's not something that Robbie Nielsen said, but it seems like the Rowdies did try to do something that they didn't necessarily need to do. Something that was something that was a higher difficulty pass rather than the easier, lower difficulty pass. Maybe that's what they took. And then obviously defensively, it was a complete collapse. That was completely unacceptable. And going from 4-0 up to 4-4 in 15, 16 minutes time, whatever it was, that's not something that we can ever allow to happen again. It's something that you can look back on and you can say, okay, that did happen. Now that we're past it, luckily, fair enough, but it was a complete collapse. The Rowdies players at the back, and I would hate to impugn anybody, because I if I said this to any of their faces, the automatic response is, okay, well, you do it. And, none of us can. That's understandable. But at the same time, you do have to say, there was a collapse at the back, and I think that it ultimately comes down to a little bit of complacency, if not a lot of complacency. If not a lot of complacency. So I hate to impugn anybody for the reasons that I said, but it's not something that you and I, if we're being honest in this podcast, that we can avoid doing. We can talk about, when I watched the penalty, I didn't think that it was real, and we can point to things like that and say, it was bad officiating all throughout, and that's why they came back in 4-4. It really wasn't. It was down to the Rowdies' defense. Even if you want to quibble with the penalty, there were 3 goals before it that there was nothing that you could argue about. So yeah, it's just complete complacency. And the only thing, I'll correct you, Carlos, with the goal, because I know that you were watching it, but for whatever reason, FOTMob has Nick Moon as the last goal scorer. It was Manuel Arteaga who got both goals in extra time.
Yeah, you're correct. Yeah. I remember writing that down. I don't know why it showed up like that on FOTMob.
Yeah, because after the game, I was the one who was sending the U.S. Open Cup website the
Yeah.
updates, and I sent them Manuel Arteaga scores, and I checked my phone, and it says Nick Moon scored, and I was like, wait a minute, did I send them the wrong note, or did they? So I don't know what happened there, but someone got their wires crossed,
Yeah.
and yeah, FOTMob has it wrong that Nick Moon scored the goal. It was Manuel Arteaga who got both of them in extra time, so he is almost as much a hero as Cal Jennings, if not
Yeah.
more so. But it was after the game, I was talking with Eureka, our producer, who said it's crazy when somebody scores a hat trick and that's not the number one story in the game. That's the best way to look at this.
That might be like the number 3 story, honestly.
For real.
Like, what is it? It's Birmingham comeback / Rowdies collapse. We'll combine that into one. Arteaga bicycle kick goal in overtime.
That's
like,
definitely number 2. That's definitely number 2.
Jennings hat trick has to be 3. I don't think you can put anything else above that. But a hat trick being a third in the storylines is absurd.
And a bicycle kick winner also not being the top storyline. Like it's a crazy game. And as you said, Carlos, you put it perfectly. If Birmingham had all the momentum in the world to go and win that game, the fact that they didn't is honestly kind of surprising. So we won that game, and thank God we did, because if you and I were talking about this game and it was a 5-4 Birmingham win, or it was a Birmingham win on penalties, this would be completely unacceptable. And I think that there would be people who would be out there on the internet saying crazy stuff about, the team, the coaching staff, all that we don't want to get into because it's at this point hypothetical. But I cannot imagine.
There would be an absolute movement to bring Neil Collins home after the certain firing in Barnsley, which again is crazy on its own. But like this, you're totally right. Like one more goal for Birmingham in overtime would have entirely changed the entire dynamic of not only like this episode, the week, like the whole season. We're talking about an Open Cup where we're already in the round of 16 after playing one game.
Right.
And we're hosting FC Dallas at home.
Right.
And we have the opportunity to get in the quarterfinals playing a pretty beatable MLS squad at home. Like missing out on all, like, honestly, like, this is going to sound like, I know there's some Open Cup haters out there. Like,
you're wrong.
Yeah, you're wrong, first of all. But if I'm picking one of these 2 games to win, which I would rather us win both of them, it would absolutely been this one because of the extra opportunity that comes with this now.
I agree.
An opportunity to go even further. Like the opportunity this season in particular is crazy. So having lost this would have, I think, not only changed the entire attitude of this podcast, but like literally the entire attitude of the rest of the season, like what could have been. You know what I mean? So
absolutely.
Anyway, sorry to interrupt you, but like this game was more important than I think anybody really understands. And this collapse would have been much more detrimental to the rest of the year, the whole squad as a whole, if we didn't pull off this, frankly, really impressive win in overtime, despite the whole unimpressive part in the last 10 plus stoppage time.
Yes, exactly. No, you're completely right. I think that is a very good point to focus on. I think that that's something that Rowdies fans should keep in mind when we think about the Dallas game that's coming up. The fact that we have the opportunity to play it, get your tickets, and it was really wild to see in person. It's almost unfortunate that I was taking the notes for the Open Cup website because I was taken out of the emotion of it at times. And I was trying to keep track of substitutes and everything. It sounds kind of funny because I was watching the game and I would look up and I would be like, okay, somebody has scored. My brain, the first instinct is to make sure that I have the correct time, the correct numbers of the shirt, and the correct names, and send that. And then I would be able to react and sit there and go, wait a minute, it's 4-3. What has just happened here? How am I, what position are we in? So yeah, that game, it's, thank God that Cal Jennings had scored 4 goals or 3 goals, and that Manuel Arteaga could come on and make it 6 in the end. But it was crazy. I don't know if we can handle another collapse like that again. But I think the ultimate storyline from this game was 15 minutes of absolute complacency.
Yeah. And I think this is like, sorry, I accidentally muted myself. This team is too good to like have another moment like this. I think we're really, really fortunate to have had this and then still won.
Exactly.
Like we're like that's a huge part of this game that I'm trying to emphasize more because again, the opportunity that comes with this win, how fortunate we are to still have managed to win this game is incredible. I mean, think back to like the game at home conference finals against Louisville, right? We're down 2 goals. Nobody expects us to come back. We come back and we tie the game. I think everybody in that stadium knew we were going to win. Like, there's no way we go into that overtime and lose with all that momentum. Louisville made their subs, right, and everything. Like, the fact that we came out and still won, impressive. Highly, highly fortunate. Highly, highly fortunate. So, like, I don't think this is going to be something that we look back on. Or, sorry, I don't think it's something that repeats itself because, first of all, it's so rare. Second of all, I hope Nielsen doesn't celebrate this win and says, hey, like, we got to figure this out. So also, this never happens again. Because there's too much talent on this team for that to happen. Or anything close like that again. A 2-goal lead in stoppage time. Like, you know, we've struggled with closing out games. We've talked about that a little bit. This is on another level. And I full confidence that this doesn't happen again. So, again, I think we're incredibly fortunate that it happened and we still won. So there's lessons to be taken away here. And I hope, crossing my fingers, nothing remotely close to this ever happens again in my lifetime. A 4-goal lead getting blown in stoppage time? No, sorry.
My heart can't take it. My heart cannot take it. But that does take us into the next game versus Legion. So, Carlos, as I was saying, on Saturday, it was a 1-0 loss at home versus Birmingham Legion. I almost did it again, versus Birmingham Legion. I don't know where this is coming from, but anyway. So that one was a much less fun result in the end. As you said, though, I think the Open Cup game was the more important of the two if we could only pick one, which we didn't need to. However, after rewatching it and the highlights, I do think that there was a much bigger opportunity to win this game than I remembered afterwards. Immediately, obviously, your emotions are heightened and you feel like, God, that was a terrible game. We didn't deserve blah, blah, blah. No, we actually played relatively well for most of the game, and I think that we created a lot more chances than I thought. They weren't the big chances that we have seen in the last couple of games before the Memphis one. And they weren't the chances that we needed, obviously, because we ultimately did not put anything into the net. But it's better afterwards with hindsight to look back and see that we were able to create the chances that we did and that we were able to hit the post at one point. Cal Jennings had 2 almost goals in I think other games, something that he scores. Manuel Arteaga had another one of those chances that I think in another game he could have scored. So it's not the sky is falling. It is 2 league losses in a row. You could say that one of them versus Memphis was definitely weird circumstances, and I will say that they were weird circumstances. But this one against Legion on Saturday, that one comes down to us not creating the chances that we needed as much as we did create several chances, but also our defending. It's not that our defending was bad. It sounds like I'm lining up to say that our defense was awful. It really wasn't. We had Eddie Manjoma, Jordan Doherty, and Aaron Guillen at the back again. That's not what we're used to in a lot of games because Eddie Manjoma is usually a right fullback, or for us recently, a right wing back. Jordan Doherty playing as the center back, the central center back. That's not common either. Now, Jordan Doherty he makes his name in this league as being somebody who can play in multiple different positions. So it's not like he was incapable and it's not like he was bad at all, but it's just not something we're used to. So when we were, I think it was right before the goal, actually. Let me just double check because I had the figures here, the numbers. The goal was scored in the 67th minute, and it was right at, okay, so they were both in the 67th minute. We made 3 substitutions that were counted as having taken place in the 67th minute. That was Manuel Arteaga coming off, Joshua Perez coming off, and Eddie Manjoma coming off. And coming on were Damian Rivera, Nate Worth for his debut, and Nick Moon. We moved back to a 4-4-2 type of situation, which is also something we're not used to. This is something afterwards that Robbie Nielsen mentioned he wanted to do so that we could get more width while we were trying to attack Birmingham. That was the way that they were going to create more chances based on the circumstances that we had seen so far. Fair enough. However, unfortunately, with Pacific Nyongabire going from right wing back to right winger and Nick Moon stepping in as the right fullback, unfortunately, there was a miscommunication in the play that led up to the goal, which, as I said, occurred also in the 67th minute. Ultimately, it was a long ball, I believe, from Kobe Hernandez-Foster at the number 8 position, and he's wearing the number 8, to Jake Roof, who was running in behind Nick Moon, because it was actually Pacific Nyongabire who did not step back to cover the man that he was supposed to be covering as the right winger. So there was a miscommunication as we switched these positions up, and that led to Birmingham getting the goal that they wanted to score all game. And Enzo Martinez getting his third goal against the Tampa Bay Rowdies in a Birmingham Legion shirt. So there was that piece of news that came with it. Unfortunately, though, it was that quick and very, very, very momentary switch off and lapse in concentration that led to the only goal of the game. And you have to say, that's unfortunate. Nate Worth, it's his debut. He's 17 years old. You could possibly point a finger at him not tracking back on Enzo Martinez. I don't know if that was specifically his man or if that was someone who's a bit deeper than Nate Worth who should have been on him, but that's another thing to look at when you're looking at this goal. So it's unfortunate that that is where the only goal of the game came from. I want to turn really quickly to John Morrissey at USL Tactics. He is our guru.
My king.
But yeah, he is. He was talking about the Rowdies in his weekly newsletter. I believe it's part of Backheeled, or it might just be his own Substack. But he pointed to a couple of factors that the Rowdies have been, I guess, giving up recently. And these led to, not only, in his opinion, the red card that Forrest Lasso had versus Memphis, but also our late collapse, and then this goal versus Birmingham Legion in the 1-0 loss. The late collapse was instigated by a potent duo. 1, little to no pressure in the midfield, and 2, a back line sitting too high. So I don't think the back line sitting too high was necessarily a problem with the goal that Birmingham Legion scored on Saturday. However, I do think that Enzo Martinez being in the position to score the goal that he did was a problem. And then if you want to go back a little bit farther, Kobe Hernandez Foster was also able to pick out the pass that led to the assist for this goal with little to no pressure on him. So that part is certainly true. Kobe Hernandez, again, this was all literally seconds after the substitution that we had made.
Yeah.
So you have to chalk it up to really stupid circumstances at the moment. But at the same time, it's such a low scoring sport. You can give up one goal and that's it. And that's what happens. So all of these things are stuff that needs to be taken into account. I guess when we're making substitutions, maybe make them when the ball is it's a goal kick for the other team, or it's a goal kick for us, something that we can punt it away and we don't have to worry about players losing their position super fast. But that was all that it was. I just hope that in the future, when we get the chances that we had, I guess, earlier in this game, we don't hit the post like Cal Jennings. I believe it was Cal Jennings who hit the post. We don't have Manuel Arteaga's header go just wide. So yeah, those are I think the big factors for the second game versus Legion.
Yeah, I mean, Enzo, I'm looking back at the clip where he scored this goal. Enzo had, and it's going to sound like I'm exaggerating, but I'm really not. There's like 10, 12 feet between him and the next Rowdies defender. Like there's like a pentagon of Rowdies players around him. None of them are anywhere close to him. Like it's not even close. So he had so much space to settle in, walk in, and then first time, boom, shot right by Jordan Farr into the bottom right corner. It wasn't close. It was so easy for him to do. And it was so frustrating that it was Enzo Martinez of all people.
Yeah.
Yeah, this was one of those games that was, like you said, I don't know. I mean, you just have to, like, obviously it's easier to say. You have to put those chances away. But even then, there wasn't really a ton of those chances. Like, there just wasn't a ton going. Maybe, yeah, in that first half, there's a few. Cal Jennings skies the ball. Arteaga hits the ball wide. Who else? Obviously, Cal Jennings hits that post. There just wasn't a ton going for us, especially in the second half, that I can point to. I'm glad Nate Worth is on this team, by the way.
Yes.
I guess that's news.
Yeah, we'll get to him in a little bit with the Tulsa preview, because actually that's where he came from.
Exactly. I'm glad he's on this team. It seems like he'll be able to contribute a pretty good amount. I'll save some of my comments for then. Because there's some cool things to say about him. Unfortunate that his like literal first minute was stepping on the field and Birmingham scores.
Yeah.
I don't really know like kind of what position he was explicitly playing in this game. Obviously somewhere in the central midfield. He was like really, really high up the field on that Birmingham goal. So maybe that was his role. I don't imagine if he was supposed to be more of a defensive guy, he would have just stayed that far up the field.
Right.
So I'm not going to say it's like his fault, obviously. There's plenty of other guys that were around Enzo that just did not even come close to taking a step in his direction until that ball was already at his feet. So that's unfortunate. The rest of the game was pretty boring. Honestly, it was such a night and day contrast with that first game. But yeah, ironically, both my teams were playing at the same time on both days, by the way. Liga de Quito was playing literally at the same time on Wednesday and on Saturday. So I was double screening both times. I'll tell you what, I basically turned off the Rowdies game on Wednesday when we were already up. I'm like, oh yeah, this game's over. I'll put the Liga game on the big screen and whatever. This is a game that like I just had on the whole time because it seemed like one of those games where one lapse in judgment is going to lead to that goal. And clearly that's what happened. Unfortunately, it was in Birmingham's favor. I don't think we played that bad. It was pretty slow, honestly. It's been a little inconsistent. We've gotten hot on offense, then randomly we've had these games where it's not really clicking, despite not really changing a ton. So I don't really know. I don't know. I don't imagine like that's going to be a problem because it's been looking pretty good most of these recent games. Hope Lasso's fine. Like I know he picked up that random little maybe injury before the Open Cup. Obviously, he was suspended for that second game in the league game. The Lasso in would bring that consistency at the back that I think would avoid some mistakes going forward.
I tend to agree with that.
Yeah, Manjoma is fine. I'm not like saying he's like the best player on the field by any means. Like he's solid at the wingback position. It seemed like he was fine at that kind of like more explicitly defensive role on Wednesday and on Saturday. So I think Lasso being there is just more normal, stable, consistent. Brings veteran nature to the back line, with the exception of that silly red card, which I don't think was a foul. So yeah, I'm not too concerned. It just feels like I've said that phrase a little bit too much. However many games we are into the year. What is it? 10 games?
9 total.
9
Well,
games?
10. Yeah, you're right. No, 10 with the 10 with
with the
the
cup.
Open Cup.
Yeah,
So that
so-
does mean 10 total.
Yeah, so I feel like I've just said the phrase. I'm not that concerned. More times than I would like at this point in the season. It feels like there's so much talent on the team. It just needs to like be consistent. It needs to click more fully. I know it was back-to-back games against the same team. I know that's really difficult. I know they were tired from overtime, but so is Birmingham. So I just think this is kind of a unique circumstance with the same opponent back-to-back, short turnaround. But it was still a highly, highly winnable game. And unfortunately, not only do you drop in the table, but Birmingham leaps you in the table.
Yes.
So we dropped down to 6th place, which is not where you really want to be with a team that's this good. Frankly, this is a top 3 team just based on roster alone and not really playing the consistent level that it needs to be to get there. Detroit and Louisville are both in 2nd and 3rd place. 3rd and 2nd place respectively. And they have a game in hand. So not only do they have points ahead of us, but they have a chance to increase that gap. It's early in the year. I know that there's still plenty of soccer. We're not even close to halfway. But it needs to be more consistent. And I think once that happens, we've been known to go on some pretty crazy runs throughout the year. It seems like the Rowdies always have some crazy unbeaten run or some crazy a shutout record. There's always something with us every other season. So I hope that comes around sooner rather than later. I hope it goes into the FC Dallas game. That'd be awesome. But the talent's there. We just need to be a little more consistent. We need to close out games. Obviously, it seems to be an issue, maybe more so in that Wednesday game than in other situations. So, again, I don't think this will be a problem. I'm not too concerned. The offense is clicking most games. Let's just hope it's a little more consistent.
Carlos, I think that is an actually really good roundup of the 2 games taken together. So I will skip that question because I think you have done just about everything that I would have said for that same answer there. I just hope all of it comes together in this game against Tulsa that we have coming up, because that would be a great boost ahead of a very, very important game in the Open Cup, which we will not be previewing tonight. You will get that next week when we get a little closer with some help from another podcast, as long as everything works out. So let's just do our man of the match for this game. Carlos, I will let you go first. Who was your man of the match for each of these games?
Yeah, it's hard not to say Cal Jennings or Arteaga for that first game in the Open Cup, but I really, really want to give Damian Rivera his flowers for this game. It was really, really fun to watch. He is a real electric player. Obviously, different position from Spalding Sanity from last year, but there's similarities in the dribbling skill and the ability to cut in and take some shots and create opportunities out of seemingly nothing sometimes. Obviously, they came from the same club. So Damian Rivera has a lot of potential for this team, and I'm not concerned at all with Arteaga being out. So that stupid red card against FC Dallas, Damian Rivera is going to slot in beautifully, and I don't think that should be a problem. He had a fantastic game. He's been having pretty solid games whenever he's had to step in. He's really had the opportunity to shine with this team, and I really like what he can do. Like, he's fun to watch. So, yeah, keep an eye out on him this year. James, you want to do your man of the match for the Wednesday game, and then we'll both do ours for the Saturday?
Absolutely. So for the Wednesday game, I took somebody who was on the field before the goals started for Birmingham Legion. I think on principle, I could not take anyone who was still on the field when those goals started and then kept raining in afterwards. And that was pretty easy because there was somebody who was on the field, got a hat trick, and then was subbed off before the goals actually came for Birmingham. So my man of the match for the Open Cup game was Cal Jennings. I think that is a relatively easy choice here. You can't do much better than getting a hat trick. I think Blake Bodley obviously also did very well. He had 2 assists before he was subbed off, which also happened before Legion's goals. I think Manuel Arteaga would have absolutely had a shout in this one. The only issue was that he was on the field. That doesn't mean that he was responsible. In fact, I don't think he was really responsible at all for those goals. But his scissor / bicycle kick, it was incredible. So you could definitely make the argument for him, but I'm going to go with Cal Jennings just for the reasons I laid out. And Carlos, I will turn it back to you now for the Saturday night game.
Yeah, but Arteaga, by the way, he could have easily been my man of the match. Like, it's so hard not to say him. Like, there's so many storylines. Like, again, the Cal Jennings hat trick, it's crazy. And I'm gonna stand on that. His bicycle kick higher up in my rankings than the Joe Cole bicycle kick against Puerto Rico way back.
There we go.
Okay. For Saturday game, a bit harder for me to pick. I wasn't really thrilled by anybody. But Jordan Doherty was my pick for the Saturday game. He's just been a rock consistently, and this wasn't much different. I wouldn't put any of the fault from that goal on him. Like, maybe very, 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 very little amount, but he's just been so consistent. Having him like move around so much in the back line and still playing at the level he plays. He plays like he's huge, but he's not like that big, right? What's his how tall? Does tall show up over here? Or his height show up somewhere? I don't know. I could find
5'10", 5'11".
5'10". Yeah, he plays like he's not much shorter than Forrest Lasso. He feels quicker, and he just looks in such great shape. And I'm so excited to have him on this team. He's been so consistent, and he doesn't get talked about enough unless you're Dan, who loves Jordan Doherty so much. He tweets about having a team full of Jordan Dohertys every other game. Shout out Dan if you're listening to this.
Yeah, I think that that will actually be a really nice little treat for Dan, because he is, as you said, the number one fan for Jordan Doherty. But for me, this was another situation similar to the game in the Open Cup where I picked somebody who was on the field before the goal was scored, because I think that makes it easier considering that we did not score. And for me, that person was Eddie Munjoma. Eddie Munjoma was thrust into a relatively weird position for him. He's not used to playing center back, or not center back. I guess it's a right back and a back 3, but he's more used to playing actually out on the wing as a fullback or a wing back. So that's where we've seen him the last couple of games. Pacific Nyongabire was the one who actually took up the position on Saturday, and I think he did well. But Eddie Munjoma playing in an uncomfortable position, and after a very weird game in which he played the same position versus Birmingham Legion on Wednesday in the Open Cup, I think that he bounced back pretty well. And in his 67 minutes before the goal was scored, I thought that he did a very good job of controlling everything there. So I went with Eddie Munjoma. Now, with those 2 games, somehow out of the way. I'm sure we'll come back to them at some point in the future, Carlos. But I do want to say liking and subscribing is free. If you think, though, you might need some new threads coming up this season, and maybe you want to help RBLR Sports a little bit more, you can do that. Support our podcast by heading over to shop.rblrsports.com and checking out all the designs that we've got going on there. There will be a link in the description as per usual. I picked the right way. I pointed at the ad on the screen. Good job to me.
That's really hard to do.
It is. There will be a promo code COYR for 10% off of your order. Please check that out whenever you get the chance. I believe that if you do, you will find something you like. Now, Carlos, we've got a game to preview this weekend, and it's going to be a big one, not just because we've had 2 league losses in a row, which we would like to turn around. That'd be great. It's at home, so it's the perfect place to do it. And
Absolutely.
if we score, we might get some momentum for another big game that's only 4 days afterward. So let's get into it.
I'm so excited for that one. I'm going to be finally back home for that.
Hell yes. Let's go.
It's going to be awesome. Okay. So, we're playing FC Tulsa at home this weekend, 7:30 p.m. at Link Stadium. Get your tickets. It'll be a fun one for a variety of reasons. Tulsa have played 1 fewer game than us, and they have 3 fewer points. Historically, we have never lost to them, so let's keep up that streak with a win. Their form is mixed, although, by the way, they haven't lost in their last 4 games. You look at their last 5 games, that first of the 5 games was against Charleston Battery. They got blown out 4-1 at home. They started playing a pretty good run of form here. They barely got by El Paso, but win is a win, 1-0. They tied against Birmingham, who we just played, obviously, and then they had back-to-back games against Pittsburgh, which they won in the Open Cup and tied at home in league play. They've had a mixed bag, but they're certainly not playing bad soccer by any means right now. They usually play with Michael Creek in net behind Arthur Rogers, Alexis Suahe, Bradley Bourgeois, and Pat Segrist. Justin Portillo and Edwin Lasso sit right behind Blaine Ferry in the middle. Philip Goodrun and Boubacar Diallo are also there. And up top has been one of my, I shout out all my Georgetown folks in the league and USL and MLS and wherever they are, Norway. Dante Polvara is playing for Aberdeen, Scotland.
That's right.
But Stefan Stojanovic is literally he's a great friend of mine. He's a fantastic, fantastic person. And he plays for Tulsa. So, of course, he will score against us because whenever we play any Georgetown alums, they either score or assist against us. Stefan, I love you. Please don't score against us for the love of God. I need that streak to be broken. Interesting fact, by the way, up top. Interesting fact, Diallo is the son of former Tampa Bay Mutiny striker Mamadou Diallo. So, more little Tampa Bay connections.
Do you remember him, Carlos?
I don't.
Oh, okay. I remember him from a couple of Mutiny games because he was the big, like the very large striker up top. He was a big man and he was a big personality too. I remember that as well. It was very funny that I looked that up and I clicked on him and it was like, oh my God, Mamadou Diallo, no way. So yeah,
that's awesome. Yeah, so folks who've been around the Tampa Bay soccer scene for a bit longer will remember that name, Mamadou Diallo. That's a fun one. His son is coming down here to play your Tampa Bay Rowdies. Stojanovic, I love him, has 3 goals. Diallo and Goodrum each have 2. Rogers, Ferry, and Portillo all have 2 assists. Those 3, by the way, have created the most big chances and chances overall for this team. So, despite all that, the Rowdies did sign a player, snatched him right out of Tulsa. His name is Nate Worth, a 17-year-old kid with so much hype, so much potential. It's not somebody I've kept up with too much, but the name's always been popping up. He's someone that U.S. soccer fans, people who keep up with, the world of soccer in general in this country are pretty excited about because he has tons and tons of potential. Lots of talk about him going to Europe. It'd be really cool if the last team he plays for in the U.S. before he goes off to Europe is the Tampa Bay Rowdies. So he's here. He plays for the Rowdies, and he's playing against his former squad. Hopefully he gets some minutes against them, just at least for the storyline, if nothing else. James, this is the team we're playing against. Again, they have won 2 of their last 5, tied 2 of their last 5, and lost 1 of that 5. Blowout against Charleston Battery, but it seems like Charleston's been doing that to a lot of teams. So take that with a grain of salt. Where are we going into this game, and how do you think it's going to go?
Yeah, well, as we have noted, Stefan Stojanovic and Philip Goodrum, these are two very good players in this league. These are two guys that we're going to have to keep an eye on. Based on the recent struggles at the back, I would hope that everybody at the back, obviously, is dialed in for this one. It's going to be extremely difficult to contain these two guys. We already know that going in, and Jordan Farr, it's going to be up to him to dictate from his position behind the back line where they need to go. It's going to be up to Forrest Lasso once he comes back, obviously, to do the same. As a side note, I thought that Freddie Kleeman was going to start in the center back role for the second game versus Legion on Saturday. I guess he didn't because he's had this recurring injury problem. So it was, again, Eddie Munjoma who stepped in at the back. We don't have to worry about that for the Tulsa game. Forrest Lasso should be back and able to be his usual marshaling self in the center back position. And I'm really ready to see that again, because if I'm not mistaken, Carlos, Stojanovic is also a very big player. He's very tall and strong up top too.
Yeah, he is. I want to say he's 6'1". At least when he was at Georgetown. I don't imagine that changed much within 2 years. And he's quick for his size. Like, he moves really, really well. So Lasso can deal with the size, but I think we have enough speed and mobility in the back as well with Doherty and Guillen to deal with how quick he can move. So he's really good. Obviously, Goodrum is really good. That's a fantastic attacking duo they have in Tulsa. I don't expect it to be very long before they really hit their stride, and that becomes a really significantly talked about duo in this league.
Yeah, that is all good to note. So to get back to where their chances are coming from, that's usually on the wings. So Arthur Rogers has been the right wing, the right fullback mostly, and Blaine Ferry has been the right winger mostly for FC Tulsa the last couple of games. They both have 2 assists. Justin Portillo is a more defensive midfielder, but he can link up with those guys on the right side. So I guess it's natural that he would also have 2 assists and them leading the team with that number. It's all interesting to keep in mind because these are players who are going to be, again, going to be very important for us to try and lock down. Ultimately, that means if they're coming down their right side, it'll be our left. Blake Bodley and Aaron Guillen are going to be the guys most responsible for shutting down those 2 players in particular, with more than likely Josh Perez dropping a little deeper from his starting position up at the top. You could say more as a number 8 in front of Lewis Hilton so that he can maybe shut down the play of Justin Portillo as the central midfielder alongside Edwin Lasso. I think that all of those are going to be important little tidbits to keep track of. But as the Rowdies always point out, I do really appreciate that they're putting out these pregame little videos that we get via email that they're just short clips about different players giving us their take on what the new game coming up is going to be. In this case, it was also Robbie Nielsen talking about how we get back on track after the 2 league losses. And he was saying that we have to focus on doing the things that we do well, which I think is true because we can handle most of the teams in this league if we continue to do that. And if we play our game at the top of our game, I do believe that we should be able to handle Tulsa. So as long as we can get back to the basics here, make sure that we're not doing the things that led to the collapse against Birmingham in the Open Cup, I think that we can definitely beat this team. It's not that they are one of the best teams in the league, but they do have, as almost everyone does, they do have dangerous pieces. We've talked about them now a couple of times, but we should be able to handle this team if we're playing at our best, if we're playing with our top players. Nobody's suspended. We do have injuries, of course, but even Charlie Dennis is coming back. The players who are out, I believe, should be, if Freddie Kleeman is out, then that's him. But Zane Bubb, who hasn't unfortunately made an appearance yet. Leo Fernandez, who has only made 2 appearances so far, also unfortunate. And Zach Haribo, no appearances. So everyone else is mostly where we need them to be. Everyone else is available. Let's go into this game and let's take it to this team. Let's beat Tulsa. That's what I'm going to will into the universe in this one.
Yeah. In fact, let's just jump into it. I'm going to say that it happens. We come out of here with a 2-1 win against Tulsa. My one goal, again, because it always happens that Georgetown will score on us, Stefan Stojanovic is going to score like freaking wonder goal from like a million yards out. But
You've already had that happen, Carlos. Don't wish it in. Don't wish that into being again.
that being said, I do think we can handle it, and I think it's going to be a game we can win relatively comfortably if everything goes well, which it can, and I think it will. I think we learned our lessons from this past week. We know what to do. We know what not to do. Everything's kind of coming together. No suspensions. Kyle Jennings and Arteaga, probably, yes, playing together up top. Because Arteaga, I mean, it's not like you can rest Arteaga because he's not going to play the next game anyway. I don't know. You know what I'm saying? I think it's going to go along well. Arteaga and Jennings are going to continue that 1-2 duo and both get on the score sheet. So comfortable-ish 2-1 win for the Rowdies.
Okay. I'm going to say that we do win this one. I'm even going to go so far as to say we get a shutout, and I'm going to say that this is a 2-0 win. 2-0 win versus Tulsa. Now, I apologize to your boy, Stefan Stojanovic, but I'm going to say that he does not score the wonder goal from over halfway. We've already had that. The likelihood it happens again is too low.
Unlikely.
Our producer, Eureka, has given a 3-0 win prediction. So that is 3 predictions of a winning scoreline for the Tampa Bay Rowdies.
Rare.
If you are listening, Mr. Tampa Bay Rowdies, whole team, yourselves, go make it happen. Go make it happen. You have your marching orders from RBLR Sports. Forget about your coach and your coaching staff. It is from RBLR that you take your orders.
Exactly.
So.
I coached youth soccer for a couple seasons in town and country, so I think I know what I'm talking about. But
there we go.
If we're gonna go out and win, either make it a 2-1 win or like 8-0, like no in between.
If it's 8-0, man, that will be. I can't think of a better momentum charger for an FC Dallas game.
Well, save some goals for Dallas, I guess. To be fair, maybe like 5-0. We'll save the other 3 for Dallas.
There we go, folks. Look, we are so good at planning, Carlos. I think that we are perfect at this. Now, with all of that said, we do have our extra time segment to get through, and unfortunately, we do have to start with the news that Connor Antley has apparently suffered an ACL tear. That has made the rounds on Twitter, and that sucks because he has just moved to DC United only, I think, 3 months ago at this point. But
he's
just
been hot. He's been real hot. Like, he's been starting. He's been getting tons of minutes. I mean, he's been assisting on goals. Him and Benteke have been tearing it up at DC United for a team that spent very little on a roster this year and has been really struggling on paper to put together a team that looks like it would compete. They looked really good, and it sucks. Sorry to interrupt you. That sucks for Antley. It really is a brutal blow, and it seemed like he was playing really, really good soccer.
Yeah, I mean, it's such a cool story to have someone go through all of the levels of USL, literally from USL League 2 to 1 to the championship, and finally make a move to an MLS team. And he starts on the bench, and then he gets some playing time, and he becomes a bit more of a starter. And yeah, he tears his ACL. That's got to be one of the worst feelings in soccer. I don't know what would be worse that isn't, losing the World Cup or something like that. But
or losing a USL final against Orange County at home.
That's true. But at least if you do that, you have a game coming up in a couple of months. And I think, unfortunately, with an ACL tear, that isn't the case. So we wish Connor Antley the best, a speedy recovery, as speedy as it can be. That's still going to be several months, but we wish you the best, buddy. And I hope that DC United keep him around afterwards and integrate him back into the team. But now, let's get into the extra time segment that we actually wanted to talk about, because the Connor Antley thing happened today. But yes, to follow up on a point from earlier, the Rowdies have signed U.S. Youth National Team player Nate Worth. Just wanted to hit on that a little bit more. He was originally a New York Red Bulls Youth Academy player. He moved to FC Tulsa, as we have already mentioned. He was a pretty regular player last season. I think he had actually quite a few starts as well. Unfortunately, for whatever reason, it wasn't really working for him this season, and he was getting a lot less playing time. So I'm sure he figured, why not see if we can maybe make a move somewhere else? And ultimately, that became the Tampa Bay Rowdies. I think, Carlos, just as you said, this is somebody who is going to be looking to move to Europe at some point relatively soon. He turns 18, obviously, around this time next season. And if we can keep him until, let's say, June of 2025, that would be amazing. That sounds like it would be amazing. And I would love to see him start to play more. Robbie Nielsen talked about how he's a player who has all of the technical ability that is necessary to play at this level. What he might need maybe is a little bit more of the physical side. And I think that you could all see that he's a smaller guy on the field, but if he has the brains,
17,
yeah, if he has the brains necessary to put his technical ability into action against the 6'3" Forrest Lassos of the world, let's say, then he's going to be an incredible player. And I'm glad that the Rowdies are trying to focus on being the place where players like Nate Worth, players like Christian Ortiz can come through and actually make their mark. And I think that both of these guys are going to be relatively to very good talents in the future.
Yeah, this is really cool. I mentioned this before. It hasn't happened to my knowledge yet that we've signed one of these kids. And it hasn't been on like an academy type contract where he's going to play college soccer next year at UNC or Wake Forest or wherever these kids go. I mean, this kid's playing pro soccer. Like, he is a professional soccer player, and he's going to continue his professional career. And this is just one step in it.
Yes.
That's really cool. I mean, we've heard that Christian Ortiz might get that full-time contract, which would be really, really fun too. We'll have two of them in the same year. That'd be really fun. Again, we've never had one to my knowledge. It's usually been these academy contract type things. Right. This is really cool, especially because we're talking about kids that can like not just develop. We're talking about kids that can like play soccer and contribute off the bench. Who knows? Maybe even start. So it's exciting stuff for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. So congratulations to us, the fans of the Tampa Bay Rowdies, for having a great new player to support. Back to USL League One we go for Westchester, New York, that is, where a franchise has been confirmed for the 2025 season. So that's very interesting. New York is a bit of a crowded market. I don't know exactly how far away Westchester is, if I'm not mistaken.
It's kind of random.
Is that Long Island? I don't know the geography well enough up there.
I have a few friends from that area. I'm not saying like, I don't know. I don't really know anything about it. It just seems it's pretty random. It's like a county outside of the main city, obviously, but yeah, we'll see how it goes. I'm curious. Very like wealthy part of the state. It feels like the vibes I'm getting are like Loudoun County-esque. I hope they do better in drawing attendance, but initial vibes, that's kind of what I'm getting. So we'll see. I'm not trying to like be a hater before they even start off. Not really hating on Loudoun United either. But similar vibes, at least demographically, and kind of the vibes of the area in general. So we'll see how it goes. But that's pretty cool. I mean, in general, I love expansion. We'll see how it goes. Like you said, New York's a pretty crowded market, so it's certainly a challenge. But USL has been pretty good at picking the market, so maybe there's something there I'm missing.
It's also not the case that there aren't enough people to support multiple teams in New York. I mean, how many teams are there in London? It is. I think it might be close to three figures how many clubs there are in London. So
feels like it.
Yeah, New York is also a big city. You know, we are a different country in terms of our soccer growth naturally than the UK and England in particular. But I still think that there's room enough. So I hope it works out, obviously, and we shall see how they do when 2025 gets going.
Yep.
Additionally, another USL Super League team was named. So this will be going up against the Tampa Bay Sun in only a couple more months' time. Yeah. Dallas Trin City. They have a very, very nice crest. It is an oval because apparently they are playing in a stadium that is shaped like an oval. I don't know how many are not specifically shaped like that, but they will be. So that's cool. It's a very nice crest, in my opinion. Tune into our Sun Show to get more information about not only the Tampa Bay Sun, but the league overall. Other teams have announced players. That's big moves because that had not happened until recently. The Tampa Bay Sun were the only team to have announced players. We have other teams, and there is now this new one, Dallas Trin City. It's really cool that this other program has come on board, and I'm excited for all of that. Make sure you tune into our show.
Dallas Trinity. Just heads up, we had a little spelling error here.
We're wrong about Trin City. Thank you.
Hey, you know what though? You know what? This is why you tune in to our podcast exclusively dedicated to the Tampa Bay Sun to get full and accurate coverage of not just the Tampa Bay Sun, but that league in general. It's going to be a blast. Again, Division I sanctioning. It's a weird world in the world of U.S. soccer, but here we are. 2 Division I leagues and World of Women's Soccer, and we'll see how it goes. We'll run with it, and I'm sure USL Super League will be a success. It seems like Tampa Bay Sun has some great momentum already. It's going to be a blast.
And Carlos, I will turn it over to you for the last point here.
Yeah, I will just say, last but not least, before we wrap up, get your tickets already. Just get on it for that game against FC Dallas. It's going to be so much fun. We're talking about a huge opportunity to get into the quarterfinals of the Open Cup without having stepped out of Al Lang Stadium. It's really cool stuff. FC Dallas is an incredibly beatable team. It's not the best team in MLS, certainly not the worst team, but this is a team that's not been doing fantastic. They're not in great form. It's a team that I think we could take advantage of when they come down here to Tampa Bay. Sorry, I know we have some there's a lot of hate for people when they just say Tampa. I'll clarify that again. Tampa Bay. It's going to be a fun game. It's been a long time since we beat an MLS team in this tournament. It's incredibly overdue. We're over 10 years since we beat Seattle Sounders at home in that signature win. I think it's about time we had another one of those.
And if you think about it, the last one that we had last year was also at home versus a team from Texas, and we lost to Houston. So we got to make up for it. This is effectively revenge.
Yeah, well, we'll go with that. We'll run with that too. It's gonna be a great one. Obviously, we're playing against a team who has some reputation. It's MLS squad. I don't know how much that means in today's day and age, but it's certainly a team that has, in theory, everything they need to beat us. We're the underdogs. I love a good underdog story. It's a good time for a run. Again, quarterfinals on the line. Who knows who will play? I'm not really sure. I think it's a draw still. So let's go for it. Let's just keep going because this is the best opportunity we've had to win this tournament ever. So let's go for it.
Here we go. You have your marching orders now from Carlos. It's not just the team. We also order our fans around. Everybody has to listen. Those are the rules. Now, thank you, everyone, for tuning in. We have given you those orders, and we will close out the show with that. Please follow RBLR Sports on Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, Facebook, Threads, and anywhere else. We are at RBLR Sports. I am mostly on Twitter at RBLR James K. What about you, Carlos?
At Carlos TPA10 on Twitter. Liga de Quito's playing against Junior right now. I'm going to tweet about that because I have to. And it's 0-0, 15 minutes in. So hopefully we come out with the win. Let's go.
All right. Well, I'm not going to tweet about my other team who are in Scotland because it has been a rough week for them. So we're going to leave it there. But if you would like to get at us, you can also use the hashtag AskRBLR. We appreciate when you have any questions for us because that means that we can answer them. Like and subscribe to our podcast. You can get the full experience on YouTube, and we are also on Spotify and the iHeartRadio app. For another week and another win coming up. Come on, you Rowdies.
Thank you for tuning into this presentation by RBLR Sports. On your way out of the stadium, please remember to like and subscribe.